Hello and welcome to Startup Champions 2.0, the show where you meet and learn from National Startup Award winning founders. In the episode today, you will meet one startup champion from the space industry. They are Agnikul, and our special startup mentor, that is Shri Jayan D. Patil. Before we meet our startup champion for today, from the entire team at Startup Champions 2.0, I wish you and your family Merry Christmas. It's Christmas and you can make a wish and so can I. I wish that I could travel all the way through space. I'm not sure if that will happen very soon, but today our startup champion is a team that is creating 21st century new age rockets. They are 3D printing rocket parts and in many ways disrupting the entire startup and space game. They are one of the companies that has signed an exclusive MOU with ISRO. Imagine what ignited minds can achieve in India. It's now time to see the Agnikul story.
At Agnikul, we are really trying to simplify getting access to space, right? And actually, this is one of the products that we are building. It's called Agniban. It's the name of our rocket. So the real problem in the market today is rockets are still big, even though satellites have become small. So we wanted to build a nice small rocket that can quickly take satellites to space. And we're doing that with completely in-house built technology, both designed in India and made in India. And we're doing that with about 100 people or so team. So we have a testing facility, a rocket factory, and an assembly facility where we put the vehicle together. So we are basically providing transportation services to space for commodities. Right? Think of it like an Amazon truck or a Flipkart truck that's going from point A to point B. Point B is space. And we are doing that in such a manner that the wait time between when you place the order to actually take someone to space is less than 2 weeks. So the larger vision really is to make space transportation super simple. It should be as easy as hailing a cab, Ola or Uber in India. That's how easy it should be to go to space. We should just ask people, how much they want to take to space, from where they want to launch and where they want to get to. And with that, a vehicle should be ready for them to ride.
Here we have a 3D printing machine, which is metal additive manufacturing one. Here we are making rocket engines, basically the thrust chamber and all the critical parts. We can print both a first stage and second stage engine, and we can print multiple engines at the same time.
Srinath and Moin, welcome to Startup Champions 2.0.
Thank you for having us here.
My first question to the both of you is, look, you're building rockets. We get that. But what problem are you really solving here?
So what has been happening in the satellite industry is satellites have become really, really small.
Sure.
But rockets are, beyond all of the technology that they're actually having, are simply vehicles. And vehicles which were built for satellites of the past, which were like really huge satellites. But satellites have shrunk. Rockets are still sort of stuck in the past. So we are trying to bridge that gap by building, small rockets that can take them quickly to space.
So what we decided is we'll build a vehicle that is capable of lifting up to 100 kgs of payload. So That's exactly what we were thinking, because the satellite mass was actually shrinking. And then we also wanted to add a little spin to it. So we said, because the satellites are shrinking, because the electronics are shrinking, so the satellite might also go as low as 30 kgs as well, as even smaller than that as well. And they could also be doing constellations. So that's a new template that has been come across the market, where instead of putting one big satellite, you put a bunch of small satellites and you make them talk. So that's what we call it as constellation. So in all of these constellation satellites will weigh somewhere around between 100 kgs or up to even 300 kgs, depending upon. So we wanted to give something to the market where we are offering something called as flexibility. So if you have a 30 kg payload, yes, we will launch you. If you have a 300 kg payload, we will be still able to launch you. So the idea was to take them to something called as low Earth orbits. That's exactly is the plan, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Fantastic. The next question is, how many years of research and development has actually gone into building what you've actually built?
Well, we actually officially started in December of 2017.
Okay.
So you could say the company's life is around 4.5 years.
Sure.
But we were ideating much before that. Moin and I used to play cricket together in Chennai. That's how. And we were talking about what a rocket like this should be like, right?
Okay.
But to be very honest, we are standing at the point where, so much of research has already happened in our country, right? So in some sense, you could say the work has been happening for 50, 60 years.
Sure.
But at least from an Agnikul standpoint, it's a 5-year story, a 4.5-year story.
You have your own custom-built launch pad as well.
Yeah,
Tell us more
correct.
about it.
So what we decided is to really address customers in a very short period of time.
Okay.
There should be as little dependency as possible on anything outside of Agnikul.
Okay.
Right? And one of the dependencies usually comes in from infrastructure at launch ports.
Sure.
Right? So, and we decided that if you are really dependent on huge infrastructure, then your mobility aspects are also cut off, right? You need to go where that is.
Of course.
Instead, we want to turn the story around a little and say, okay, this is a small vehicle, in at least relative to what the general industry does. It's a very small vehicle.
Sure.
Can we also have a small launch pad that can be moved along with the vehicle?
Sure.
So that's where that comes from.
Interesting. And since you said and you mentioned the name customers, right? Who exactly are your customers?
Wow. So that's a normal question that we get, and so we divide them into two types of customers, right?
Sure.
So one are the conventional customers who take photos from space. So we call them as Earth imaging satellites,
Sure.
right? And then we have the communication satellites. So these are the conventional customers that we have. And now in the recent years, we've seen like a lot of non-conventional customers taking space as a platform. Like now pharmaceutical companies are trying to use space as a platform because they want to do microgravity experiments in space.
Oh, okay.
And then you have entertainment industry trying to use space as a platform. And then we have like data storage because the cooling is absolutely free. So you can also serve all your data in space for absolutely no cost, nothing. And now we are trying to see multiple industries trying to use space as a platform. So it's not just the conventional or the traditional customers that we had. Apart from this, multiple industries. Now this is making the space sector actually grow bigger than we expected.
Very interesting. So till date, we've only been learning and listening about SaaS as software as a service. You're actually creating space as a service. This is interesting. So what's your business model? How do you make money?
Okay, it's a simple transportation business, right? So point A is ground, point B is space.
Sure.
Right? So we take the amount of kgs that we have to take, and per kg we charge them. So it's that simple.
So even though the product itself is reasonably complex, the business models are actually what you would expect in a very traditional ground transportation company. That's it.
Phenomenal. I could never actually imagine understanding a rocket so simply, really. But okay, tell me more about how did you actually fund your company on day one, and have you actually raised any external round of funding till date?
Yes, so we started off by putting in our own money. So Moin and I, luckily we had worked in the past outside the country.
Sure.
So we had a little bit of savings. So we sunk all of that into Agnikul when we started. But I think since then, I think a couple of things have happened at the government level as well, right? We've had announcements about in space, Atmanirbhar gave all of the space sector a big ride. So we have been able to raise some funds outside as well. So we have raised 3 rounds of funding so far, about $15 million, just over 100 crores is what we've raised.
Phenomenal. Congratulations to the both of you on that. How big a team are you guys right now?
100 people or so, roughly. I think including interns and the people who are doing part-time and all that, it would be even more. But we would say anywhere between 95 to 120.
Fantastic. So right now, millions of Indians are actually watching you on Startup Champions 2.0. Right? They want to be entrepreneurs like you. They want to solve bigger problems like you. What's your message to all of them?
I think the biggest message from my side would be to follow your heart. It's not about being an entrepreneur, but it's about really solving for a problem that you deeply can connect emotionally with. Right? As long as you do that, the rest of the things hopefully will align.
So from my end, it's like failure is a part of your journey, right? So you have to embrace that. Once you do it, definitely you also understand what success means. So I just think we have failed more and that's why we are here. That's it.
Fantastic. So failure is a part of the journey. If you embrace it, you will only lead to more success. The top 2 lessons of the session are: number 1, space is the next frontier of exploration. You heard it, SaaS, it's space as a service. Start thinking about it, start learning about it. Number 2, you could be a 3D printing company and still create a niche to support space technology development and build a solid business there as well. So try and understand it from this perspective. You have a certain company building rockets, and then you could actually create accessories around it, and you could still build a large enough business. It's time now to take audience's questions. So please come on screen and ask your question.
Hi, I want to know, how do you brace yourself for the failures? Like, as when a rocket fails, a lot of brain, time and money goes with it. So how do you see it?
Great question. I think Moin will have his parts to say, but first to start off with, I think you always factor in failures as a part of the problem itself, right? So you do raise money according to that. You try to put a lot of systems in place, but the important idea is to accept the fact that there are going to be failures before you succeed. So that's actually how we start off, by accepting the fact that you are going to have obstacles.
So there is a risk factor that is involved when you're launching something.
Sure.
And there is a system to de-risk as well. We call that as insurance. So you have also as a launch insurance.
Sure.
But obviously, the more hit would be emotionally rather than financially and other stuff, because like once you're back with your emotions, you're going to fix the technical glitch. And then yes, as I said, you will be looking out for success more.
So thank you for your answers, gentlemen. It's now time to take a break. You learned about space, but on the other side, you will meet somebody that you would have only dreamt of meeting. Meet me on the other side.
As a parliamentarian, there's a lot of research you have to do before you speak in parliament, and it's extremely imperative to be well read and know your subject. Are there any issues that you have raised in this parliamentary democracy which you think have impacted India as a country, or something you'd like to talk about?
देवेंद्र कुला वेलेलार एक बिल था साउथ इंडिया का, तमिलनाडु में प्राइम मिनिस्टर सर ने उनको प्रॉमिस किया. उसके बाद जब मैंने उसको प्रिपेयर किया सब, तो कि वहाँ पे तमिलनाडु में the people over there, they start calling me देवेंद्र कुला वेलेलार अम्मा.
How nice, how nice.
So I mean,
what a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Startup Champions 2.0. Space sector is booming. Funding into space tech startups has grown by 198% in 2021 compared to 2020. Let's now hear from our mentor, Mr. Jayant D. Patil, Chairman of Indian Space Association. Welcome to Startup Champions 2.0, Mr. Patil.
Thank you.
Mr. Patil, my first question to you is, how is Indian Space Association different from ISRO?
In fact, ISRO is the one who's been a science and technology house, and we know there's been an amazing success story for India which has been crafted by ISRO. Of course, as a part of ISRO's growth, with whom a whole lot of industry is associated, truly to my memory, it's exactly now close to about 54 years since when the ISRO was founded in its current form. Industry was always associated, but it was always a sort of a tierized partner. It was just a manufacturing partner. More of build to print, entire concept coming from the science and technology people, but some amazing success stories for India it built. What it obviously didn't do was what the sector is about to be opened now for, to directly get into space commerce in a big way. While all this 55 years we have gone through this journey of the space and have enormous amount of different segments, right from navigation to remote sensing to varieties of things which ISRO has been able to do, to a point of creating the largest number of satellites launched in one mission kind of successes. Fact is, our part of the share of the global space commerce is just 2%. And that's essentially where there's a belief and there's a saying that why don't we really try and concentrate, open it up for commerce for anyone and everyone else, and that's essentially where the sector truly can grow. So that's essentially where we are today, at a time in history when we start looking at some time back in future, and when we look back, we would have said that 2020 to 22 has been a kind of period in which this enabling to the industry directly get into a space commerce would have begun. The Space Association here now doesn't talk of any one segment of the space industry. We are talking of launch vehicles, we are talking of ground segment, we are talking of space services, we are talking of remote sensing, we are talking of communication. We are across the segments, and what we also want to be talking about is entire data that would finally get collected, which essentially will reach the masses, and that's essentially where nearly about 75% of the space sector and the commerce associated is all about data and the data dissemination and the analytics which are built around. Now, this is essentially, different segments of this market will start thriving, and there is one organization which essentially not remaining or restricting itself to any one given segment, and that's essentially where ISPA's positioning is. That's essentially what we are doing today. Of course, ISRO, because of its past, becomes an extremely important partner in terms of the science and technology that exists, which today can always be taken by industry and built upon that.
Fantastic. Space tech is tough. It is extremely tough. India's key advantage is frugal innovation. Will ISPA help space tech startups get funding as well?
For startups, it was something which we said, let it be absolutely bare minimum and joining fees virtually waived. Idea essentially is we actually start hearing to the grassroots, because we believe that is essentially where we are going to get our tomorrow's SpaceXs and things like that. Also, there have been very focused meetings and attention which has been paid to be able to harness this funding. And there are multiple things which have been happening. Recently, we had one major event of specific startups, about 8 of them were the one who participated, and that was an evening session about 4 hours, but it won't get over in 4 hours. It lasted beyond 6 hours. Essentially talking about what are the big opportunities, because on one side, what the startups would need is enormous amount of future opportunities what they need to be looking at. Second side is who will fund in terms of their developmental needs. So there are 2 initiatives. One is, of course, bring in the angel investment. Second, we obviously began is our belief that space is going to be enormously important to defense sector. So there's very serious engagement with Department of Defense, and through that there are existing processes in Department of Defense which essentially funds the innovation, and that's under the IDEX scheme and the IDEX Prime schemes. So we believe that this is something which can as well be harnessed for space. Going beyond that, there are 2 more schemes under the Ministry of Defense. So all the 4 are getting packaged. A whole lot of debate, discussion, work in progress, but we believe quite soon there would be a very serious funding mechanisms that would actually come into existence, which would be dual use. You could use it for specific to defense needs. On those things, there will be obviously some encryption, decryption related issues which will get addressed. And of course, without that, it's open for any kind of space commerce.
What is your advice to space tech startups? Should they focus on downstream applications like remote sensing, satellite solutions, or upstream applications like launch vehicles, propulsion engines? So what's your advice to all of them?
To my mind, to be frugal, to be truly innovative, far more with the existing data can start monetizing. If you build your foundation strong, obviously thereafter it's time to start looking at the upstream. And I tell you for a reason. You said upfront that the space sector is high tech obviously, but very risky. The risks associated being much higher. As a startup, it's always better to start with something which, with pure innovation and pure minds, one can truly create some very special value. And that can actually be done far more in the downstream side, and obviously thereafter to be taken into the upstream side, because to get the reliabilities built so that your insurance premiums at some day are going to be much lower than what otherwise others be bearing. Now this is an aspect. At the same time, when you launch something, anything going wrong, you are supposed to be responsible for what happens right across the world, anywhere if there's any damage to take place. So the risk content obviously is far higher.
That's phenomenal. So my next question to you, sir, is what are the top challenges that space tech sector is facing at present?
As far as the startups are concerned, one point which you very rightly touched upon is the matter of funding, because that's essentially where it will matter in terms of whether it's going to be self-sustainable, because great ideas obviously require ability to take those risks, and that ability to take risk means somebody else to be able to put in that kind of a risk capital. And that's essentially where our efforts today are to sort of get those either from the angel investors and from the speed funding and the subsequent rounds of funding, as well as Here's a government which is going to be coming out soon. We'll hear about it after a couple of weeks, couple of months in the coming time in terms of serious investment, because we know Department of Space has not been able to provide that kind of a developmental funding. The kind which they have been able to do is through ISRO. But to completely unrelated areas, they have not been able to fund this to the industry, and that's essentially where defense funding will start mattering.
Will Indian Space Association also launch fellowships or internships such that more young Indians can get excited about space tech?
In fact, we just started that. In fact, as soon as the Indian Space Association was created, we within first 2-3 months allowed this. We today have few fellows. We today actually have some people who said that I want to do my internship here. And there have been a few of those people who are actually spending time in ISPA's office.
India's youth is watching you right now, millions of them. What's your message to all of them?
I keep saying when we talk of space, sky is not the limit.
Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us today on Startup Champions 2.0.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's now time for a break. Come back to continue your journey of how to start a startup with step number 20. I'll see you on the other side.
তুমিও ইয়াত ব্যৱসায় কৰিব পাৰা, কিন্তু তুমি ইয়াৰ নিয়মসমূহ মানিব লাগিব। বহুত অপেক্ষা কৰিলো, আমি দেখুৱাব লাগিব আমি কোন হয়।
তেতিয়া সমগ্ৰ ভাৰতে আমাৰ শক্তিৰ উমান পাব।
এই শিয়ালবোৰক মাৰিবই লাগিব, আমাৰ মাতৃভূমিৰ বাবে, স্বৰাজৰ বাবে।
Welcome back to Startup Champions 2.0. Learning leads to earning. Let's continue our journey of learning with step number 20 of how to start a startup. Implement a CRM. CRM is an automation tool and it stands for Customer Relationship Management. Imagine you have 500 customers in your business. Now, how would you ever remember their birthdays, their past purchases? Have you ever received an SMS saying, you shopped with us 6 months back, here is a 50% discount coupon for you, specially only for you. This is not sent by a human being. This is sent automatically by a CRM software. Do you remember that I taught you AARRRC metric a couple of episodes back? CRM actually helps you reduce churn and increase customer retention. More than management, CRM actually helps in creating a world-class customer experience in your business. Now let's understand CRM a lot more better with another simpler example. Let's just say that you went to a certain business and there you bought something for maybe your children as a gift. While taking this gift and while giving this product to you, they actually recorded the birth date of your children in their systems. Now every year automatically they would be able to wish a happy birthday to your children. But what they would also be doing is increasing their sales. And that is what a CRM helps you do. A CRM ensures that you are able to capture a lot of data points, lot of data sets about your customers. And then you are able to re-engage with your customers via marketing. And that is why I said that a CRM is actually an automation tool. What it also helps you achieve is it helps you automate your marketing. So now you don't have to hire too many people to actually implement a lot of marketing processes in your company. Literally, a good CRM software can actually reduce down the cost of marketing, reduce down also potentially the cost of customer acquisition, and increase customer engagement and customer acquisition as well as customer retention for you. Ensure that you implement a CRM in your company. It's not a choice for you anymore. It's a mandate. As your company grows, especially if you are a B2C company, you must implement a CRM. This is step number 20 of how to start a startup. Please ensure that you implement this step in your company. It will ensure that you don't fail. What did you learn from today's episode? Tell me more about it. Share your feedback with us. Make your videos and post them on social media with hashtag #StartupChampions2. In the next episode, you will meet startup champions from Industry 4.0. Thank you for watching Startup Champions 2.0. Jai Hind.
So this drone is called Drona from our popular mythology and spirituality. It's meant to be a small, versatile drone that can fly in tight spaces between buildings, in forests, on the borderlines.
As we talk about the insights that are generated by the AI models and by people recording, so these things can be actually sold to the specific departments or organizations that are interested in this data.
How is a concrete 3D printer fundamentally different from all the rest of the 3D printers that we've seen?
Concrete 3D printer is a much bigger system. You're talking about a 3D printer that is the size of a building, or it can accommodate a building inside it, print out an entire structure.